The Galactic Council gathered beneath the shimmering arches of the Crystal Dome of Unity, a massive structure suspended in the orbit of Ular Prime's twin suns. Light poured through the dome like liquid gold, bending across the faces of thousands of alien delegates, each from worlds older and colder than memory. But today, even the oldest races trembled, for the humans were coming. The words had spread across every communication channel. Whispered from fleet to fleet, the Deathworlders had answered the summons, not as subjects, not as allies, but as something else entirely. The Speaker of the Council, a towering being of glass and light named Vorien, had prepared his speech for weeks. It was to be the declaration of peace, the treaty that would finally bind the Terrans under Council law, to limit their fleets, their colonies, their reach. The Speaker looked over the crowd, his crystalline skin flickering in nervous patterns of light. Today, he said, his voice echoing across the chamber, we end an age of fear and begin an age of order. The hall responded with hesitant applause, wings clapped, mandibles clicked, voices of 100 species hummed in hollow tones. But deep beneath their gestures of agreement lay unease, for none had ever truly understood humanity. They had come from a world that killed its own children and still survived, a death world where everything hunted, burned, and evolved to conquer pain itself. They were the youngest species in the stars yet. Somehow the most dangerous. The Speaker paused when the chamber doors opened. The air shifted, heat, light, and gravity bent just slightly, and in stepped a single human. No guards, no escort, no soldiers, just one, tall, calm, face unreadable, dressed not in military uniform but in plain gray fabric. He carried no weapon. Yet every sensor in the hall overloaded for a fraction of a second, reading impossible density in his frame. The Speaker's light flickered again. Welcome, representative of Earth, he said with a forced smile. We are honored by your presence. The human said nothing. His boots echoed softly on the crystal floor as he walked toward the center of the dome. Every sound seemed louder. The hum of lights, the pulse of generators, the quiet rasp of alien breath. The Council's translator spheres spun in midair, waiting to capture his voice. But he stood silent, scanning the crowd with eyes that reflected nothing. We are gathered. The Speaker continued nervously. To discuss peace, to ensure that the recent expansions by your fleets do not destabilize the... He hesitated, searching for a word that didn't mean empire. Our shared systems. The human's gaze locked on him and the words froze in his throat. It wasn't hostility. It wasn't rage. It was something colder, older. The weight of a predator who had already decided. Humanity, the Speaker tried again, has been a great contributor to galactic progress. But your aggression cannot continue unchecked. This new treaty ensures that all races remain equal. Your ships will stand down. Your colonies will be monitored. Your weapons. The human raised a hand. The entire hall went silent instantly. Even the sound of machinery seemed to die. You think we asked for this meeting? The human said at last, his voice calm, low, and steady. The kind of tone that carried more power than shouting ever could. We didn't, the Speaker blinked, his glass form flickering nervously. But your government requested. We came, the human interrupted, to listen. He turned slowly, letting his eyes sweep across the hall, across faces that turned away as if afraid to be seen. And we've heard enough. A wave of unease rippled through the assembly. The Speaker tried to recover. You misunderstand. This is not an ultimatum. This is diplomacy. The human gave a small, humorless smile. Diplomacy, he repeated softly. You think peace is paperwork, that treaties stop wars, that words control strength. He stepped forward, and every guard in the chamber tensed. We've been patient, he said. Patient when your fleets circled Mars. Patient when your agents sabotaged our colonies. Patient when you called us savages for defending our skies. The Speaker tried to respond, but the human's voice cut through him like glass. You've mistaken our patience for permission, he said. The words were quiet, but they struck like thunder. The hall froze. No one breathed. The air itself seemed to hold still. If you want balance, he continued, earn it. And without waiting for a response he turned and walked away. The guards parted instinctively. None dared move. None dared speak. The doors opened silently and then sealed behind him. For a long moment there was only silence. Then the Speaker exhaled a sharp vibration. What does this mean? He whispered. But before anyone could answer, every light in the dome flickered once and went dark. The stars outside dimmed. The twin suns of Ular Prime faded into shadow for exactly 60 seconds. The delegates panicked, shouting, transmitting. But their systems wouldn't respond. Screens froze, energy readings flatlined. Even the emergency generators failed. one by one. Communication relays went offline across the sector. No sound, no signal, only cold silence. Then just as suddenly, the lights returned, brighter than before, but something had changed. The holographic map at the center of the chamber now displayed a new image, not the galactic seal, not the council insignia, but a single blue circle surrounding a small white light. The mark of Earth. Every delegate stared at it in stunned silence. No one spoke, no one dared. The speaker's voice cracked. "Run diagnostics," he ordered. But the AI responded with a tone none had heard before, a human voice, soft and calm. "Diagnostics complete," it said. "We are watching." The room went deathly silent, then chaos erupted. Delegates screamed. Some tried to flee, others demanded explanations. "It's a trick," shouted one, "a viral attack." But the systems all said the same thing. "We are watching," over and over, across every screen, every console, every transmission node. The speaker staggered back, trembling. "They've taken control of our entire network," he whispered. The Serathi ambassador hissed. "Then fight back, isolate the data." But before he could act, his translator implant burned out. Smoke rising from his jaw. He fell to the floor, convulsing. The others backed away, terrified. The council's own AI turned its holographic eyes toward the speaker and spoke again. "Humanity rejects your terms," it said. "The meeting is concluded," and then shut down completely, plunging the dome into darkness once more. Outside, beyond the glass walls, ships drifted in silence, not destroyed but held motionless, as if frozen in time, their reactors humming without heat, their lights dim but steady. The speaker clutched the railing, his crystal fingers cracking. Under pressure, "Why didn't they fire?" he whispered. "Why didn't they attack?" The Ketheri elder, old and cloaked in mist, answered from her corner. "Because they don't need to," she said softly. "They already won." As the stars reignited and the suns flared to life again, the speaker saw something that chilled every spark in his body. Human ships, thousands of them, fading into slipspace, not away from the council but around it, forming a silent ring of light, invisible yet felt like pressure on every soul. The elder's eyes dimmed. They walked out, she whispered, and took the galaxy with them. And as the dome's light stabilized, a faint hum echoed through the walls, a rhythm of 8 seconds dark, 3 seconds light, repeating endlessly across every system in the sector, the new heartbeat of the galaxy, the rhythm of humanity's silence. The blackout had lasted only a minute, but it changed everything. The council's halls no longer felt like a place of power but like a cage. The delegates shouted orders, but their voices echoed uselessly through the dark air when the light returned. Their faces looked pale beneath the shimmer of the twin suns. The speaker tried to speak, but his own voice sounded small, unsteady. The glass walls around them reflected the new mark that now pulsed across every console, the Terran symbol, a blue circle with a single white spark. No one dared to touch it. The systems had rebooted themselves faster than any known protocol. Some tried to disconnect their terminals, but even manual power lines hummed in response, as if something deeper than their machinery now breathed inside it. The speaker slammed his hand against the table. "Find where the signal came from now." But the network technicians could only stare at their screens, eyes wide in disbelief. "There is no source," one whispered. The message came from everywhere at once, even from within our own systems. Across the room, the Ketheri elder stood silent, her mist-like form trembling. "They warned us years ago," she whispered. "That interference with their technology would end badly. No one listened to her." The speaker turned toward the great viewing window where the human ships had once floated. They were still there, dark shapes glimmering against the light of Ular Prime, unmoving, cold, perfect. "They're not transmitting," said one officer. "They're just waiting." The speaker's light dimmed. "For what?" But before anyone could answer, the suns flickered again, this time slower, deeper. Every pulse made the crystal walls vibrate, a low hum that resonated through bone and metal. At first it seemed random, but one of the scientists gasped. "It's code binary sequence repeating. It's their language." The speaker's head turned sharply. "Translate it now." The scientist's trembling fingers moved across the console. The translation appeared in bright letters on the holoscreen. "You wanted control, now you have none." Silence filled the hall again, this time heavier than before. "What does that mean?" whispered a delegate. The elder sighed. "It means they've taken the one thing you never thought could be taken from you, certainty." Outside the glass, the human fleet still floated motionless, but the light of the suns dimmed with each passing minute. The entire system darkened by 10%, 30, 50, until space itself seemed to swallow color. The speaker shouted, "Stabilize the solar grids, reroute auxiliary power." But the power technicians looked helpless. "It's not our grid, it's the stars themselves, they're fading." Panic rippled through the assembly. Communication officers tried to send distress signals to nearby systems, but every message failed, bounced back, or dissolved into static. On the third attempt, all channels displayed the same phrase: "Negotiation terminated." The council chamber erupted into chaos again. Several species demanded an immediate evacuation. Others wanted to declare war, but war required movement and no one dared to approach the Terran fleet. One captain tried launching a scout drone. The instant it crossed within range of the nearest human ship, it froze mid-flight. Sensors melted into white noise, and then it was gone. Not destroyed, not exploded, just gone, erased. The speaker sank back into his chair, his crystal hands trembling. How can they do this? How can they control stars? No one answered. The elder finally spoke, her voice low and slow. They don't control stars, they speak to them and the stars listen. For hours the council tried to find a logical explanation. Gravity fields, power drains, weaponized stellar cores, but nothing fit. Physics had boundaries. Humanity no longer seemed to obey them. Then, at exactly midnight, Ular Prime's twin suns vanished, not exploded, not dimmed, simply stopped shining, their light cut off. As if someone had drawn a curtain across them, the system plunged into blackness. Millions of inhabitants screamed across the comms, but the council could only watch helplessly. Then a single line of text scrolled across every screen in the galaxy. Silence is the beginning of understanding. And the light returned not from the suns, but from the human ships. Each vessel glowing softly with pale blue energy. The speaker's voice cracked. Are they threatening us? The elder shook her head. No, this is not a threat, this is the lesson. The speaker turned to her. Lesson in what? In humility. She whispered as the twin suns reignited, brighter than before, now tinted faintly blue. The council's instruments recorded a massive energy surge, but not destructive. It stabilized the magnetic fields, corrected gravitational drift, balanced the entire system as if the humans had repaired the star itself. The delegates looked around, confused, afraid. They fixed our suns, one said. After they broke them, another muttered. No, the elder replied. After we broke trust. The speaker rose. Enough philosophy, I want answers. How did they alter stellar mass remotely? How did they? His voice stopped mid-sentence as the main display changed again, every holographic map in the chamber now showing the entire galaxy lit with faint lines of blue tracing human trade routes. Colonies, research outposts, many thought destroyed, but all active, everyone connected to each other, forming a network that pulsed like a living organism. They're not isolated worlds, said one scientist, in or they're one mind. The speaker stared at the display, his light trembling. Then we were never negotiating with a government, he said. We were negotiating with a species that thinks as one. The realization spread like poison through the chamber. They don't just follow orders, they act as if every human knows what the others are doing. The elder's voice was barely a whisper. They do, they call it connection, not control, and that is what you tried to break. The speaker leaned against the table, feeling the weight of the truth. The galaxy had believed humanity's strength lay in its weapons, its ships, its colonies, but their true weapon was unity, silent, absolute unity. Outside the glass, the human ships began to move, not forward, not backward, but into alignment, forming a perfect ring around the station. Their engines glowed with faint blue light, brighter and brighter, until the reflection filled the chamber's ceiling with color. The speaker raised his hands to shield his eyes. What are they doing now? The elder whispered. Reminding you of what light feels like before they take it away again. As the glow reached its peak, every delegate fell silent, not out of fear, but the light was not blinding, it was beautiful. It pulsed in rhythm with every heartbeat in the room, a perfect synchronization. The Ai's voice returned, this time no longer cold, but almost gentle. You wanted negotiation, we offered peace. You demanded power, we offered silence. This is your answer. And then the light faded, leaving behind nothing but stars burning calm, and still the systems rebooted themselves one final time, all readings normal, as if nothing had happened except for one change on every galactic frequency. A new signal now pulsed faintly, repeating once every minute, a human voice whispering the same phrase in every language ever known. We are still here. The council sat in complete silence, unable to move, unable to speak. The speaker closed his eyes, his voice a whisper. What happens now? The elder looked out at the calm blue light beyond the glass and said, now we wait to see if they forgive us or teach us again. The days after the light returned were not days of relief, they were days of fear. The galaxy had seen gods move suns and then walk away. The council called it a stabilization event, but everyone knew the truth. It had been a warning. Humanity's silence echoed louder than any declaration. The speaker gathered the remaining delegates inside the dome of unity, their faces dim under the cold blue reflection of the restored suns. We must rebuild trust, he said, trying to sound strong, but his words fell hollow. The elder stood nearby, her mist swirling slow and heavy. Trust cannot be rebuilt with fear, she said softly, and fear is all you have left. Outside the station, hundreds of ships from different species waited, nervous, weapons half-armed, not for humanity, but for each other. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy was united not by law but by dread. Traders whispered that the humans had turned their silence into a weapon, that they could shut down entire systems with a thought, that their fleets were invisible, now living inside the very light that powered the stars. One rumor said that every breath taken inside a ship was already measured by Terran satellites. Another said the humans had merged with their machines and become something else altogether. Every rumor felt true because no one could disprove it. The council's communication networks began to fail again, not from attack but from distrust, each world cutting ties to its neighbors. Deleting channels, disconnecting relays afraid. That human code still lingered inside transmissions. The speaker pounded his crystalline hand against the table. We cannot survive divided, he said, we must act together. But even as he spoke, half the screens in the chamber flickered and shut off one by one, the symbols of member worlds disappearing from the holographic map. The elder whispered. They are leaving you one by one, abandoning the council before it falls completely. The speaker turned sharply. Then we will hold them by force, but even. As he said it, he knew it was impossible. Fleets refused orders, generals vanished, governments fell silent, entire sectors broke away, forming their own alliances, claiming independence from the council under the excuse of safety from humanity. But everyone knew it was fear. The Seraphai Empire was the first to act. Their fleets began patrolling human trade routes without permission. They wanted proof of Terran control, and they wanted revenge. Their ships entered the sole boundary despite the council's warnings, and then they vanished, not destroyed, not burned away, just gone. Their entire fleet of 72 ships erased from sensors. Their last transmission was one line: the light is watching us. After that, no one dared to enter human space again. The speaker tried to keep order, but every day new reports arrived, systems shutting down, rogue AIS refusing commands, colonies declaring neutrality. Then one morning a new message appeared across the council's master relay: negotiation status suspended. Until truth is remembered, no one understood it. The scientists said it was an old Terran encryption key from before the Orion War, meaning only one thing: humans had planted it years ago, maybe decades before the council ever realized they could. The elder stared at the code, her eyes dim. They planned for this, she whispered. They knew one day this would come, the speaker shouted. Then they manipulated everything: our trade, our laws, our fleets. But she shook her head. No, they simply prepared for what they always knew you would do. You tried to chain them again. Outside the dome, the stars pulsed faintly in the Terran rhythm. 8 seconds dark, 3 seconds light across the galaxy. That same pulse now appeared on communication beacons, as if mocking the council's helplessness. One by one the old alliances collapsed. The Velnari accused the Seraphai of working with humans. The Seraphai accused the Kethri of hiding them. Chaos spread. Fleets fired on each other for trespassing. Whole planets sealed themselves off from galactic networks. The once proud council became a relic of paper and silence. This cannot be their goal, the speaker muttered. They seek order, not destruction. The elder looked at him with eyes that reflected the blue glow. Do you not see? This is order, this is balance. Through absence, when humans are silent, others reveal their true selves. Across a dozen systems, the same eerie reports arrived. Communication satellites began broadcasting human code unprompted, displaying the same cryptic phrase: observation continues. People panicked, thinking invasion had begun, but nothing came. No fleets, no ships, no sound, only the feeling that someone was watching, always watching. The council sent a fleet to destroy one of the corrupted satellites, but when their missiles hit the target, the entire weapon system froze mid-flight and reversed direction, vaporizing the attackers. Instead, the ship's logs captured the last data fragment, a calm human voice saying, "Do not touch what is not yours." The speaker sat in silence, listening to the playback over and over, his light dimming each time. They could destroy us with ease, he said. And yet they don't. Why? The elder smiled faintly. Because destruction is mercy, and they are teaching you consequence. Soon the fear turned inward. Council members began blaming each other. The Hall of Unity turned into a den of paranoia, assassinations, riots, sabotage. The speaker himself was attacked by his own guards. He survived barely. His crystal body cracked in a dozen places. When he returned to the chamber, he found it empty. No council, no unity, just darkness and the faint pulse of Terran code across the walls. We are still here. He looked up toward the stars beyond the glass and whispered, "Then show yourselves, stop hiding." But there was no answer, only the quiet hum of systems that no longer obeyed him. The elder's voice came softly from behind. "They will not answer, not yet. You are still lying to yourselves." The speaker turned. About what? She looked out the window. About who really started this negotiation? He frowned. "We did. The council summoned them." She shook her head. "No, they summoned you. The day you called it negotiation was the day they called it test, and you failed." The stars outside pulsed once brighter than before, the light washing over their faces like cold fire. The speaker fell to his knees, feeling the hum through the floor vibrating with human rhythm. "Then what do we do?" he asked. "How do we fix this?" The elder closed her eyes. "You don't fix humanity, you survive them." And in that moment, far across the galaxy, sensors picked up a new disturbance, massive gravitational waves spreading from the Sol system outward, but instead of chaos they brought harmony. Stabilizing unstable wormholes, realigning drifting stations, repairing broken orbits. Humanity was rebuilding what the Council's greed had broken, and doing it without a single word. Across every star map in the galaxy, new blue lines appeared, connecting systems through light corridors invisible to alien tech yet active like arteries of living energy. The message was clear: humanity hadn't left, they had just moved above, understanding, watching, guiding, rewriting balance itself. The speaker looked at the glowing map, tears of light streaming down his fractured glass. "They are everywhere," he whispered, "and nowhere." The elder nodded. "Just like gods pretending to be men." And as the room dimmed once more, the Council of the Galaxy ceased to exist, replaced by silence, by blue light, by the unspoken truth that peace had never been in the Council's control. It had always belonged to humanity, and they had just reclaimed it. It began without warning, no explosion, no light, no alarm, just stillness across the galaxy. In every system, ships drifted through space, their engines humming, their reactors glowing, their crews awake, but nothing moved. Thrusters refused commands, navigation froze, and autopilot failed. Even the smallest drones stopped mid-flight. It was as if space itself had turned to glass. The first reports came from the Serathi border worlds. Their fleets had been patrolling the edges of old Terran routes. Suddenly all movement ceased. One captain shouted through the comms, his voice shaking, "We're locked, we can't move, we can't even drift. It's like time stopped around us." Within hours, every major power reported the same phenomenon. Billions of tons of metal frozen mid-orbit, their instruments still alive, their hearts still beating, but motion impossible. Panic swept through the Council. The Speaker summoned what remained of his aides, their faces pale reflections of fear. "What is happening?" he demanded, but no one could answer. The Elder stood quietly watching the holographic map of the galaxy. Thousands of blue dots flickered, marking each paralyzed ship. "It's them," she whispered. "The humans have pressed pause." The Speaker slammed his fist on the table. "No one can stop ships without touching them. This defies physics." The Elder turned toward him, her eyes calm and old. "They don't defy physics, they write it." Outside the Dome of Unity, their own patrol ships had frozen mid-rotation. The great flagship Orca hung above the twin suns, motionless like a dead statue. Inside it, the crew screamed through channels for help, but the station's AI only repeated the same phrase, "System under observation, do not interfere." The Speaker's light dimmed. "Under observation by who?" And the AI answered in a voice not its own, a human voice, deep, steady. "You asked for negotiation, this is our answer." Every console in the dome flickered and rebooted, showing the image of a single Terran warship hanging silent in the void, its hull blacker than space, its outline sharp like a blade. The sight alone made the hall fall silent. For a long moment no one breathed. The Elder whispered, "They've returned." The Speaker's voice trembled. "Return from where?" The Elder did not reply. She simply looked at the ship's image with something between fear and respect. As the ship hovered motionless, its engines began to glow faint blue, and then all around the galaxy sensors picked up gravitational ripples, small at first, then growing in perfect rhythm. 8 seconds, dark 3 seconds, light, the human pattern spreading through the void. The fleets that had been frozen began to hum, their lights flickering in sync. The scientists screamed, "They're syncing us to their pulse." The Speaker shouted, "Disable everything, cut the power." But it was too late. The hum grew stronger, resonating through hulls, through bones, through the very structure of the dome. The air trembled as if reality itself was vibrating in harmony with a hidden song. The Elder closed her eyes and whispered, "This is not attack, this is demonstration. They are showing us that motion itself belongs to them now." On the outer world's chaos erupted. Cities lost gravity generators, floating helplessly into the sky. The people screamed, thinking it was the end, but then everything stopped mid-air, perfectly still, and then slowly, gently settled back down exactly where it had been. Nothing destroyed, nothing broken. The human voice returned across every frequency. "We will not destroy, we will remind." The Speaker leaned forward, trembling. "Remind us of what?" The answer came soft, "that peace is not granted through demand, it is earned through respect." And then every system rebooted, engines roared to life, ships resumed motion. But something had changed. Their coordinates were altered slightly. Every fleet repositioned into perfect formation, facing the direction of Sol, the center of human space. It was as if the galaxy itself had bowed. The Speaker collapsed into his seat, staring at the map. "They control navigation now," he whispered. "They could crash every fleet into a sun if they wanted." The Elder replied softly, "They could have done that years ago. They simply waited until you understood what control means." In the following days, the galaxy's governments tried to respond militarily, but every attempt failed. Fleets vanished in transit stations, lost all propulsion. The humans never appeared. They never fired a weapon. They simply existed everywhere in silence. The Velnari tried to build new AI systems independent of human code. Within hours, those systems melted down, broadcasting one final message: "Do not divide what is already whole." Fear became religion. Entire species began worshipping humanity as celestial beings. Temples rose in their name. Others called them demons born of the void. The Council could no longer maintain unity. Some worlds begged for forgiveness. Others armed themselves for a war that would never come, because how do you fight an enemy who doesn't move? How do you resist a silence that bends the stars to its rhythm? The Speaker's mind began to fracture. Sleepless days filled with static whispers. Sometimes he thought he heard voices inside the comms, old human phrases, soft calm. "We are watching, we are waiting, we are patient." One night he stood before the dome's window, watching the suns of Ular Prime flicker faintly blue, and whispered, "What do you want from us?" And across the glass the light shimmered into faint letters spelling, "To see if you learned." He fell to his knees, shaking, realizing this was not punishment, this was examination. Humanity had turned the galaxy into a test, and every action, every word, every thought was being recorded, watched, measured, judged. The Elder came to him, her form fading weaker each day. "They will not stop until the lesson is complete," she said softly, "and if we fail, he asked, her voice cracking. She looked out into the void. Then they will leave again and take the stars with them. Across the galaxy, movement slowed, trade died, silence grew, fleets remained active, but unwilling to travel too far too fast. The rhythm of human code became the new calendar. 8 seconds, dark 3 seconds, light, the heartbeat of creation on every screen. Across every ship, one final message began to appear. This is the day the galaxy stopped. Now decide whether it moves again. And then nothing more. The council waited days, weeks, months. The silence stretched into legend. The stars still burned, but their light carried a faint pulse, visible only to those who knew how to look. Humanity had not destroyed the galaxy. They had frozen it like a clock, waiting for the moment someone brave enough would press play again. But no one dared to touch the mechanism. The speaker finally understood why humanity had walked out of the negotiation. They had never been afraid of war. They had been afraid of what came after war, the silence that others could not survive, and now they had given that silence to everyone else as a gift and a curse. The elder's last words before she faded completely lingered in his mind. They don't speak because they have already said everything, and the galaxy is only now beginning to hear it. Desperation came quietly. It did not scream. It whispered through the empty corridors of the Dome of Unity like a dying wind. The council no longer spoke of power or unity. They spoke of survival. Fleets hung useless in orbit, governments dissolved into fragments, and yet every being in the galaxy looked to the same direction, towards Sol, the birthplace of the Deathworlders, where the silence began. The speaker, now cracked and hollow, sat before the great viewing window. His light dimmed, his voice gone dry. "We cannot live like this," he whispered. "We cannot live without motion." The aides around him said nothing. They had stopped answering days ago. The elder was gone. Her mist faded into nothing, leaving behind only her words balanced through absence. The speaker stood and looked at the stars. "We need to talk to them," he said. The aides stared. "Who?" one asked. "The humans," he said. "We will ask for peace, for real this time. No politics, no treaties. We will beg." The idea spread through the chamber like fire. Not hope but hysteria, because no one knew how to reach them. They had cut every channel, removed every coordinate, every route that led to their home. The last known path to Earth was lost from the archives, replaced with blank data. The speaker turned to the scientists. "Use the old signals, the primitive ones, the analog waves humans once used when they were still bound to one planet. Maybe that will reach them." The engineers hesitated. "That technology is ancient. We don't even have the devices anymore." "Then build them," the speaker shouted, his voice shattering the silence. "Build them and call to them before the galaxy dies of fear." It took 3 months of chaos, but they built it, a great antenna stretching above the Dome of Unity, powered by the energy of a dying sun. Old frequencies hummed through space, crackling with static and sorrow. The speaker stood before the transmitter alone, his cracked crystal form barely standing. He began to speak, his voice trembling. "To the people of Earth, to the humans of Sol, this is the Galactic Council. We speak to you not as rulers, not as equals, but as those who are lost. We were wrong. We broke the trust. We feared your strength, and we turned that fear into arrogance. We seek forgiveness. We seek peace. Please answer us." His words echoed through the halls, through the systems, through the void, then faded into silence. No reply came, not that day, not the next. The transmission continued for weeks, repeating endlessly across every known frequency until the energy reserves began to fail and the stars around Ular Prime dimmed again. "They're ignoring us," said one of the aides. "They've abandoned us completely." The speaker shook his head. "No, they are listening. They always listen." And then one night the stars themselves blinked in answer. Not all, just one, a faint blue shimmer at the edge of known space. It pulsed once, twice, 3 times, and then a signal arrived, faint, distorted and human. The technicians scrambled to decode it. When it played, every voice in the room fell silent. The words were calm, steady. "You already had peace, you just couldn't live with it." The speaker fell to his knees, the line repeating over and over. "You already had peace." Tears of light spilled from the cracks in his glass skin. "Please," he whispered, "please come back. We cannot do this alone." The stars gave no answer, only silence. The next morning, every communication satellite within 10 light years shut down by itself. No explosion, no damage. They just turned off. The galaxy's voices went quiet again. Then came a new message, this time not transmitted but written across every active display in every language known. "Request acknowledged, awaiting response." But there was no human fleet, no signal, no sound. The council was left in terror. "What does it mean?" asked one aide. The speaker looked up. "It means they are waiting to see what we do next." Weeks passed, famine began, systems collapsed, the absence of trade and order killing worlds faster than war ever could. The speaker watched reports of dying planets, of refugees, of riots, and whispered, "This is judgment." One night, unable to sleep, he returned to the viewing window and saw something in the darkness. The stars had rearranged themselves, forming faint blue patterns like rivers of light streaming across the void. He realized what they were: coordinates, old Terran star paths leading to systems humanity had abandoned centuries ago. "They're giving us a map," he said, "a way back to them." He called the council, what remained of it. "We will follow the path. We will go to Sol. We will apologize directly." Against all warnings, they launched the expedition. Fleets from every remaining world gathered near Ular Prime, preparing for the first joint mission since the silence, thousands of ships all carrying The same hope, but as they entered warp space the first fleet vanished, not destroyed, just erased from sensors, then the second, then the third. Within minutes the entire armada was gone. The council screamed through comms, abort, abort, return to real space. But it was too late. The warp collapsed like shattered glass, throwing the surviving ships back into their home systems. When they rebooted navigation, the map had changed. The path to Sol was gone again, erased, as if it had never existed. Then a new message appeared on their terminals. You cannot find what never left. The speaker stared at the words in disbelief. They're everywhere, he whispered. They were never gone. And then every light in the dome turned blue. The AI spoke in the human voice once more. Negotiation concluded, peace maintained, observation continues. And with that the stars outside the window began to flicker like a heartbeat, slow, calm, unstoppable. Across the galaxy the message spread from system to system. Worlds that had been dying suddenly revived, energy grids stabilizing, crops regrowing, air clearing, as if the very code of reality had been rewritten by unseen hands. People cried in joy, thinking the humans had forgiven them, but the speaker felt no relief. He looked up and said, "This is not forgiveness, this is control. They've turned mercy into a reminder." And as the suns flared blue, one final message appeared on every screen. "We never left you, just stopped deserving to see us." And then the light faded, leaving the galaxy bathed in silence once again, only this time it was a silence that hummed with life, as if the universe itself had been reset. And somewhere beyond the edge of the stars, where light met darkness, the faint shape of a human fleet drifted unseen, waiting, watching, never speaking, but always there. The galaxy had begun to heal, or at least that's what the survivors told themselves. Worlds rebuilt, their cities, trade routes reopened. The silence no longer felt like punishment, but like uneasy peace. The Council, what little remained of it, declared that humanity was gone forever. They said the light had faded and the codes had stopped. They said the Deathworlders were finished, a myth now, but deep down no one truly believed it. Every night across hundreds of worlds the stars still pulsed faintly in that rhythm. 8 seconds, dark 3 seconds, light, the heartbeat of humanity. Some called it coincidence, others called it curse, but all of them felt watched. Still fleets dared to travel again, though slower. Quieter, their captains whispering prayers before each jump. Children were told bedtime stories of the humans, the bringers of silence, the keepers of balance, the monsters and the gods. The line between fear and worship blurred until one day that fragile illusion shattered. It started in the Velnari outer colonies. Their miners reported seeing shapes moving between stars too large to be ships, too silent to be meteors. Scanners failed to detect anything but gravitational distortions. Deep space stations began losing power without reason. Sensors recorded strange blue flares rippling through the void, and then the first message arrived, a distress beacon repeating the same words. "They are here but not here." The council ignored it, thinking it was a hoax, until the second message came from a completely different sector, repeating the exact same line. "They are here but not here." And then the third, the fourth, the fifth. By the time the 10th came, even the most skeptical voices fell silent. Something was moving, something vast, invisible, unstoppable. The speaker, now old and broken, stood before the viewing window, trembling as reports flooded in. Fleets vanishing, sensors detecting shadows bigger than moons, flickers of light dancing across space like reflections of something beyond sight. "They've returned," whispered one aide, but the speaker shook his head. "No, they never left." On the far edge of the galaxy, where light itself bent around the black void near the ancient rim, colonies saw the impossible. For the first time in decades, human ships appeared not as fleets but as silhouettes cutting through the stars, silent, colossal, and alive. Their hulls shimmered like flowing metal absorbing light. Instead of reflecting it, they moved without sound, without signal, without warning. One planet attempted to hail them, no response. The next tried to lock weapons. Instantly every system on that world shut down. Its sky turned blue for exactly 8 seconds, then back to normal. No damage, no explosion, just stillness, as if the world itself had been politely told to be quiet. The speaker received the reports and felt his heart fracture. "What are they doing?" he whispered. "Why return now?" The AI, which had once been their servant, flickered to life, its voice no longer mechanical but calm and human. "Observation complete. Phase 2 begins." The aides froze. Phase 2 of what? One asked, but the AI only repeated, "Phase 2 begins," and shut down again. Outside the dome, the twin suns pulsed in sync with the human rhythm for the first time since the silence began. Ships all across the galaxy stopped again, this time not by force but by choice. Crews refusing to move, too afraid to attract attention. The elder's words from long ago echoed in the speaker's memory, balance through absence, and he understood now. The humans hadn't come to destroy, they had come to restore. What arrogance had broken entire sectors, suffering from decay, suddenly flourished. Energy output stabilized, ecosystems revived, even dead worlds sprouted new growth as if unseen hands touched them from afar. Scientists screamed that it was impossible, that no natural law could explain it, but deep inside everyone knew the truth. Humanity's technology had transcended form. They were no longer an empire, they were a system, a force of correction. Across the galaxy the blue glow appeared in orbit above every major world, silent, smooth disks of light hovering like moons, but not moons, they were Terran sentinels, unmanned constructs breathing Faint light. Some tried to approach them, but their ships slowed automatically, engines reducing speed. No one could come close enough to touch them. Their surfaces mirrored the stars perfectly. One pilot who drifted too near claimed he saw his own reflection, and behind it another reflection, not human, but vast, endless, the shape of something looking back, and then his ship disappeared without trace. The speaker called for calm, but the people no longer listened. Panic spread. Worlds began transmitting desperate messages into the dark, pleading for mercy, begging for communication. And then one night, without warning, the stars themselves dimmed across the entire galaxy. For 8 seconds, every light, every beacon, every flame went out. For the first time in recorded history, the universe was completely dark, and when the light returned, a new signal played through every channel, a single human voice, quiet, steady. You asked for our presence, we returned. You asked for peace, we gave you silence. You asked for proof, we gave you stars. Do not ask again. The words echoed like thunder. The speaker fell to his knees, tears of light spilling down his cracked face. They could have destroyed us, they could have ended everything, he whispered, and yet they still choose to warn us. Across the stars, the shadow fleets moved again, not toward the core, not toward the colonies, but outward, spreading toward the edges of known space, as if drawing a boundary, an invisible wall between humanity and the rest of creation. And wherever they passed, the galaxy healed, machines repaired themselves, dying suns stabilized, quantum storms ended, space itself became calm like an ocean after a storm. Scientists watched in, or entire regions that had been unstable for centuries now perfectly balanced. They're fixing the galaxy, one said in disbelief, but the speaker only whispered, no, they are fixing the damage we caused when we thought we ruled it. And as the fleets moved further outward, the blue light began to fade, one system at a time, until only the faint pulse remained, like a heartbeat fading into the distance. Then one last message came across every world, not through machines, not through signal, but through thought itself, an echo in every living mind. This is mercy, not surrender. Do not test it again. And then silence, total absolute silence returned, but this time it felt different, not empty, not cold, but peaceful. The council stood together in the quiet, their faces lit by the blue reflection of the stars. The speaker looked towards Sol's direction and whispered, they are beyond us now, beyond everything. And somewhere in that dark void, the shadows moved one last time, aligning into a vast circle before disappearing forever. And when the light returned again, every world saw new constellations shaped like a human hand reaching outward, not to strike, but to guide, a reminder that the galaxy's peace had not been earned, it had been given, and those who had given it were still watching from the other side of silence. The galaxy slept uneasy under the shadow of its own fear. The stars that once burned bright now pulsed with quiet rhythm, the rhythm of the death world, as the faint blue light that had spread across every system weeks ago was fading but not gone. Every being across the spiral arm felt it in their bones that something was coming, not war, not destruction, something far greater. The council, what remained of it, huddled inside the broken dome of unity. The speaker's crystal body cracked and dimmed, his aids gone, his voice faint. We are living inside their mercy. He whispered. The few survivors around him said nothing. The screens flickered endlessly, showing the same blue pulse repeating across every sector. 8 seconds, dark. 3 seconds, light, the heartbeat of humanity. The scientists begged to shut the systems down, afraid of what might come next, but the speaker refused. If we silence the pulse, we silence the only thing keeping this galaxy alive. 4 days the rhythm continued calm, unbroken, until the 73rd day, when it stopped, not slowed, not faded, just stopped, like the final breath of a dying god. For 3 minutes there was nothing, no light, no sound, no data, and then across every world, every ship, every station, time itself seemed to pause. Engines froze, people halted mid-motion, not paralyzed but unable to move, as if reality had forgotten how to continue. Stars hung still, planets stopped spinning, yet nothing fell. Gravity remained, but motion ceased. In that moment the galaxy was frozen, the sound of existence replaced by a low hum so deep it came from nowhere and everywhere. The speaker felt it through the floor, through his chest, through his mind, and then came the voice, human, calm, endless. The test is over. The words echoed not through comms but through thought, through matter itself. You asked for control, you built your lives on fear, now you will see what fear becomes when it learns peace. And then the dome's glass shattered without breaking, fragments floating in the air like frozen snow. The speaker could not move, his light flickered dimly around him. The stars outside hung still, the twin suns of Ular Prime locked in eternal dawn. The galaxy looked like a painting, alive but unmoving across millions of worlds. Panic turned into stillness, screams died in throats, as if sound had been muted by the hand of creation itself. And then the lights turned blue across the sky. Massive shapes began to appear in the void, shadows of impossible size stretching from one horizon to another. The fleets of humanity returning not as ships of war, but as silhouettes of order. They did not move, they did not fire, they simply hovered silent, their outlines glowing faintly against the black of space. One by one every star system saw them, hundreds of colossal structures aligned across the galactic plane like guardians of reality. The scientists screamed, their instruments showing impossible readings, gravitational waves, light, refraction, energy spikes, all synchronized in perfect balance, as if the humans had become the pulse of the universe itself. And then the voice returned, you will remember stillness for generations, because stillness is what comes before understanding. The speaker trembled. Please, he whispered, We understand, we do, we surrender, we submit. But the voice only replied submission was never the lesson. The blue light spread across every world, illuminating oceans, cities, and ruins. The light did not burn, it soothed, and in that moment all machinery stopped malfunctioning. Broken reactors repaired themselves, dying ecosystems bloomed again, blackened suns reignited, the galaxy began to heal under the frozen breath of humanity. But still no one could move, no one could speak, every being forced to witness the reconstruction of everything they had destroyed. Then, without warning, all systems powered on again. Gravity waves restarted, the stars resumed motion. Planets spun, life continued as if nothing had happened, yet everyone knew something had changed. The ships in orbit were gone, vanished, without a trace. The only proof of their presence was a faint residue of blue energy drifting like mist across the cosmos. The speaker collapsed to the floor, weeping tears of light. They froze us, they froze the galaxy, they stopped time itself, he whispered, and they brought it back. The aides looked around in disbelief. But why do this? The speaker lifted his head and said, because they wanted us to feel what silence truly means. Across the galaxy, billions stared at their skies, seeing faint rings of blue still hanging over them like ghostly halo systems that had once been at war, now connected by invisible lines of stability, as if some unseen hand had realigned the cosmos itself. The old rival empires, Serathi, Velnari, Kethari, all found their fleets repositioned, their weapons offline, their targets erased, and in their place coordinates leading to neutral zones where planets could now coexist without conflict. Humanity had rebuilt the galaxy's balance in seconds, something no council, no god, no alliance had ever done. The speaker realized then that this was not vengeance, it was teaching. The voice returned one last time, softer than before. Now you know, peace is not something given, it is something maintained through awareness, through restraint, through silence. And then the pulse returned, faint and slow, the heartbeat of the universe starting again. People began to move again, speak again, cry again. Fleets regained motion, stars resumed burning brighter than before. The galaxy was alive, but it would never be the same, because in every corner of space, every shadow, every spark of light, the presence of humanity could still be felt like ghosts guarding the laws of reality. The speaker stood weakly before the window, watching the suns burn blue, and whispered, "You could have ruled us, you could have destroyed us, why save us?" And in his mind he heard the faintest whisper, because we learned long ago that fear creates obedience, but silence creates wisdom. The dome's lights flickered and died, leaving him alone with the stars outside, now moving in perfect harmony, billions of celestial bodies dancing to a rhythm older than creation itself, the rhythm humanity had restored across the galaxy. Whispers spread that the humans had not left, they had simply become one with the structure of the universe itself. They were woven into the fabric of light and time. The galaxy would move forever to their beat, forever aware, forever afraid, forever grateful. The day became legend, the day the galaxy stopped breathing and then began again, known forever as the frozen hour. And in every language of every species those words meant one thing: the moment humanity reminded creation who truly kept it alive. When the galaxy began to move again, it did so slowly, carefully, as if afraid to disturb the silence that had just ended. Every star burned brighter than before, yet their light felt heavier. The beings of 1,000 worlds looked up at their skies expecting war, but none came. Instead they found peace. Perfect cold peace. Systems that had been in chaos were now aligned. Fleets that had been ready to fight were frozen in balanced formations, orbiting safely around their worlds. It was as if the universe itself had been rearranged into order by unseen hands. The speaker stood alone in the remains of the Dome of Unity, watching the twin suns of Ular Prime rise again, their color no longer gold but faint blue, the mark of the Deathworlders. They did this, he whispered. They reshaped the galaxy and left it clean. The aides behind him nodded, afraid to speak. Should we contact them? One asked. Ask for guidance. The speaker turned his cracked glass face toward the horizon. They already gave it, we just weren't listening. And then the ground trembled, not from destruction but resonance. A deep hum rolled through the station, shaking dust from the walls. The screens flickered alive once more, all of them showing the same image, the human symbol, the blue circle with a single white spark, the mark of Earth. The voice that followed was calm, quiet, and absolute. "We have spoken enough," it said. "You asked for our presence, and we returned. You asked for understanding, and we gave you silence. You asked for proof, and we froze time itself. There is nothing left to say." The speaker fell to his knees, the weight of the voice pressing against his mind. "Like gravity, please don't leave us again," he whispered. "We cannot guide ourselves without you." The voice answered, not with anger but with sorrow. "Then you have learned nothing." Outside the dome the stars began to shift again, moving in strange synchronized patterns, every system from the core to the rim aligned along a new axis, a glowing arc of blue light spanning the spiral arm. The galaxy's observers gasped. It wasn't random, it was writing, massive letters written with stars themselves. When translated, the message read, "Silence is not absence, it is mastery." 4 hours that sentence hung across the night, visible from every world. No one dared to move, no one dared to speak. Across the galaxy millions fell to their knees as the realization settled. Humanity had not just left a warning, they had rewritten the stars into a lesson. The speaker raised his trembling hands toward the sky, tears of light falling. "They've changed everything, they've turned creation into their final message, and as The last word of the phrase faded into space. A new sound filled the void, faint, distant like wind over mountains, the hum of Terran engines rising again from beyond the galactic rim. The council stations detected gravitational signatures on scales they couldn't understand, colossal masses moving outward, leaving the galaxy behind. The speaker looked up through the shattered glass and saw them, the shadow of ships stretching across the heavens, thousands of Terran vessels, gliding silently through the dark, each one trailing blue light, bending space around them. No weapons, no banners, only purpose, their paths forming rings that expanded outward beyond the Milky Way. "They're leaving," whispered one aide. "They're leaving forever." The speaker smiled weakly. "No, they're ascending." And then the human voice returned one last time, echoing not from one place but from every particle of existence. "We gave you balance, we restored your stars, we fixed your silence, now carry it or lose it again, we will not return." The stars pulsed once in perfect unison. 8 seconds, dark 3 seconds, light, the final heartbeat of the Deathworlders, and then all at once the light of their ships faded, nothing left but starlight. The galaxy stood still for hours, every race, every empire, every mind trying to understand what had just happened, until slowly systems resumed life, reactors warmed, engines restarted, people spoke again, but their voices felt softer, quieter, as if afraid to offend. The silence that remained. The speaker stood before the great window one last time. "So this is it, the final statement," he said softly. "They didn't leave us, they left us with ourselves." Across the void, faint ripples of blue still shimmered where the human fleets had vanished. Scientists called it residual energy, philosophers called it hope, but the truth was simpler. Humanity had woven themselves into the fabric of the galaxy. Every machine that hummed, every light that flickered, every breath of wind carried traces of their code, their rhythm, their voice, and so the galaxy lived on, not under their rule but within their shadow. For centuries afterward the council rebuilt, calling it the era of stillness, an age where no one dared to make war, where no one dared to shout too loudly, because everyone knew somewhere out there in the dark the Deathworlders still listened, and if their patience was tested again they could return with a whisper that could stop time. The speaker passed away beneath the twin blue suns, his last words recorded by his aides. "We called them monsters, they became gods. We called them savages, they became silence. And we finally learned that silence was never weakness, it was will." Across every world his message spread, repeated through generations, carved into monuments and remembered by every child that looked up at the night sky as the faint blue pulse returned every century, like a reminder that humanity still breathed beyond the edge of space. The galaxy no longer feared the silence, they worshipped it, for it was not empty, it was the sound of peace shaped by hands that no longer needed to speak. And beyond the void, beyond the reach of stars, a single Terran ship drifted through endless dark, its hull shining faintly blue, the last of its kind. Aboard it a human sat alone, watching a map of galaxies forming before him. "They'll forget us one day," said the ship's AI. The man smiled softly. "Let them, that's the point, when they stop fearing silence. That's when they'll truly hear it." He leaned back, closing his eyes as the stars stretched into infinity, his final words a whisper. "We were never gone, we simply became the quiet between worlds." And then the ship vanished into the dark, leaving behind nothing but calm and the echo of a heartbeat that would never fade, the sound of humanity itself, eternal, endless, unbroken silence.